What is it about Meghan Markle that you find so obviously narcissistic?
Well, she exhibits a rampant sense of entitlement, that she can do what she wants, irrespective of what goes on around her. So she demonstrates the hypocrisies of, I'm going to join an institution that's been around for centuries, and then I'm going to tell it how it should conduct itself. I believe it should always be my way, and now I've got a title, I can speak to you like you're something on the bottom of my shoe, which exhibits an absence of emotional empathy. She exhibits no accountability for her behaviour. So she goes on Oprah and chats nonsense, telling lies, revising history, and then expects that when she returns, everybody will welcome her with open arms, which shows the compartmentalization of the narcissist. She exhibits black and white thinking. She shows the whole array, and she's very obvious, and she's an excellent example because her need to gain the prime aims means that she utilizes the media over and over again with PR puff pieces and paid publicity. So you can't go anywhere without her popping up in your feed or such like. And also, by the same token, the media knows that she draws attention. So she's good for advertising and good for clicks. So you have this double whammy of she has to put herself in the public eye, and the public eye wants her there because lots of people are interested in it, mainly in a train wreck rubbernecking situation these days. Of my audience, I know that there is a section that are interested in narcissism. There's also a section that didn't know anything about narcissism, and then they embraced the Harry's Wife series and thought, actually, I now understand more about narcissism, and I've realised that my relationship is one with a narcissist, which is precisely the main purpose for which that work's designed. And then there's a solid core of people who just don't like Harry's wife, and therefore they just enjoy hearing about all of her ridiculous behaviours. And in order basically to stop me getting bored, I have to be quite sarcastic about her. Otherwise, it just becomes utterly tedious, because she's a tedious individual. And she doesn't know what she is. And if I was to sit down with her and explain it all to her, her narcissism would just reject it. No matter how brilliantly I would explain it to her, her narcissism is a hermetically sealed defense mechanism, and she would just accuse me of being a hateful racist, or would just basically, if she knew what I was, she would say, well, you're bound to say that about me, you're a narcissist, and would just go on about my narcissism, because she's completely unable to recognise hers. I was
going to ask you if you do have some sort of examples of very famous narcissists, and I suppose Meghan Markle is a good place to start. I do want to apologise in advance to those who do feel I've moaned myself too much about Meghan Markle. I've had a couple of reviews stating that, but this isn't my fault. This is that HG Tudor has done.
No, we're not having any blame. Not having any blame shifting here, Andrew. Trying to put it onto me.
Yeah.
Well, those people who have complained about you moaning about her, then they really failed to see the evidence of her behaviour, and individuals like that, there are some people that can look at it and realise they were wrong, but a lot of the time they're pretty dim-witted and they're in entrenched positions. I mean, there's lots of famous narcissists, of course. The recent outgoing Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, good old Bojo, was a great example of someone who's utterly self-serving, but he knows what he is, and this whole bumbling Boris routine is an act, and he positively delighted in getting away with it. It was a big game to him, how far he could push it, how he laughed at him. I think it was Max Hastings who described Johnson as saying the only people that like him are the people that don't actually know him. Because once you get to know him, you realise what an absolute nasty individual he is that will trample on anybody around him. So there are lots of famous narcissists of different types, of course.
Are you speaking of Bojo and his narcissism with disdain, or with pride in narcissism, or just matter-of-factly?
Matter-of-factly, really. I have no loyalty to other narcissists. A lot of narcissists are absolute idiots and clowns and deserve all they get in terms of being given the runaround by people, and they're haphazard and they can't regulate themselves. So I have no loyalty to them. There are others where I have a degree of admiration for what they've achieved, because remember, there are many narcissists that bring a lot of good into the world. I often explain, for instance, take Steve Jobs. I'm talking to you on one of his devices. I use his devices regularly and I find them useful. But if you were to ask Steve Wozniak what he thought about him and what his ex-partner and his daughter think about him, they'll give you a different view altogether. So there's invariably somebody who's a casualty of the narcissist behaviour. But for many people, particularly with famous narcissists, there are many narcissists in the world of rock and pop music and authors and actors and actresses. You don't know them personally. They're never going to cause you a problem. You just enjoy what they're able to do. And invariably, those type of people are best served at providing that enriched experience in terms of being superlative actors and actresses and pop stars and so forth, because They have no sense of shame. It's all about them. And intrinsically, narcissists are actors. That's why so many end up in the acting game.
Yeah, on that note, might anyone who intends to lead the country or believes that they are capable of leading an entire country be a narcissist?
Not necessarily the case, because some people just have great self-belief and understand that they can do it. But most of the time, when it comes to positions of leadership within countries and politics, naturally, that is very attractive to our kind. Why? You get your hands on the reins of power. What does power allow you to do? Control people, draw fuel from them. You have vast reservoirs of character traits that you can acquire and huge residual benefits, networks, access to secrecy, money, a facade. So politics is a huge draw to my kind. And that then creates an environment where, in order to thrive and survive in it, the best people equipped to do so are what? Narcissists. So it becomes a sort of self-perpetuating environment. Sure, some non-narcissists do well out of it, but a lot of the ones that actually go in there with proper well-intentions get chewed up and spat out, or just remain bolted to the back benches. And it's invariably the narcissists that are ones, because they'll trample on anybody, they're self-serving, their narcissism propels them forward. And, of course, as we've often seen, it's all about what's good for the narcissist. Occasionally, that tends to be good for the country as well, but not always. Narcissist comes first.
Would that often be narcissism then on what we might call the social justice activists, people who think they have a higher cause, but really it's often about them?
That's absolutely right. Narcissists occupy the right, the centre, and the left. And invariably, there's a certain cause célèbre that a narcissist can adopt, and we see it repeatedly amongst those that claim to be liberals, the sort of what's labelled woke. And in a way, one can sometimes think they're somewhat more odious than your typical right-winger, because the right-winger's almost kind of, well, we don't want immigrants coming into this country, it's my country, I don't want my taxes helping poor people, sod them. And it's fairly obvious selfishness. Whereas with those on the sort of social justice warrior side of things, they appear to care, and they think that they care. But of course, their behaviour invariably exhibits that they don't. So again, using the example of Harry's wife, that she thinks that she's there promoting sort of ethnic minorities, and that this time I'm now going to be friends to the Asians. And so in her latest podcast, she basically explains, oh, I know all about Asians because I've eaten Asian food and I've been to a Korean spa. I mean, that in itself is arrogant, high-handed, and you might even suggest that it's racist because you're stereotyping the Asian experience based off just eating some food and going to a Korean spa. But she can't see that. And so many of these individuals, what they do is they will say, I am allowed to say what I want to say. You must listen to me, freedom of speech. And as soon as you then say, but I disagree with you, you're not allowed to disagree with me, that's hate speech. No, that's a constructive disagreement I'm having with you. And you see it repeatedly on the internet. That there are people that shout and scream about, and it infects so many areas. J.K. Rowling has found herself being a victim of this with the allegations that have been made against her about being transphobic, where she's actually pro-women. And you can be both. You can be pro-women without being transphobic. But she has then been lambasted by certain voices, and there will be narcissists in that group. And of course, if they're listening to me say this now, they'll be going, no, we're not. No, we're not. She's, this, what is it, TERF or something they call her, and that she's an awful human being. No, she's not. Think about how much joy she's brought into people's lives through her novels that are known throughout the world. And she sees something which she feels strongly about, and she expresses her opinion. But she's shouted down about it, and she's threatened and trolled on Twitter, etc., by these individuals who have fake empathy. They believe they're decent people. No, not all of these individuals are narcissists. Often they're normal people whose emotional empathy for another person they don't really know is blunted. But behind all of this, the true believers, those are the narcissists, and you'll find many of them on the left as you do on the right.
I think what got me about Meghan, and I'm speaking to listeners here who are upset by my traipsing on about it. I listened to that first episode of her podcast, and she was sort of kept putting herself on the same level as Serena Williams, who's one of the most remarkable people in history. Like, she's just the most and she kept saying people like me and Serena. She kept talking about how people hate women who have ambition, but she never stated what her ambition was. We know what Serena's was, but I'm not sure what Meghan's was, particularly it's supposed to be in line with feminism, but as far as I could tell, it was about becoming a princess, and only really one or two people in the world can do that at any given time.
And I wouldn't say that's the bastion of feminism, is it?
But I said that, and I got shouted down as for being a man who's talking about feminism.
Well, there we are. You see, we clearly don't understand it because we're male. But again, what she's doing there is she is acquiring the character traits of Serena Williams to suggest that she's on a par with her. So part of it's delusion, because she's not. So how many Grand Slams have you won, Harry's wife? None.
0.
Okay. Yeah. And you see this with her. I call her the Duchess of Industrial Beige, because there's really nothing there. Now, you get some narcissists who are achievers. We mentioned some earlier on. But there, she's acquiring that character trait to make her seem like she is of the same ilk as Serena Williams, and she's not. And she will do that repeatedly. She thinks that she is on a par, or actually slightly better than the person that's being interviewed, because you'll notice as well she's a very poor interviewer, because she talks and talks and talks about herself, and occasionally the other person gets to say something.
Have you given much thought to people like, I've been doing a lot of work recently on Tom Cruise, and he's basically a cult leader, but comes across as this sort of nice, affable guy in interviews.
Well, I think there's I think you know Doug, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah. So Doug's own experience of being involved with Scientology, etc.
Mm-hmm. Doug Scott Kramer, the ex-Scientologist, yeah.
Yeah. So he knows a lot of the background about which, obviously, the world of Tom Cruise has been involved in. And we were due to actually have a conversation about the cruiser last Friday, but the internet gods got in the way of Doug's end, so that didn't happen. But it's something we're going to discuss, because Tom Cruise is an excellent example to put under what I call the Tudor-scope at some juncture. But I was wanting to get some additional information from Doug as part of my fact-finding.
Well, maybe we can, because I'm planning to do a live with him, so maybe we can do a 3-way at some point or something like that.
I'm always up for a 3-way.
Oh yeah, we're getting on, HG Tudor.
You might even become a secondary source. You might become a friend.
My fuel is starting to mean a lot to you, and then I'll just suddenly take it away, and you'll be crushed.
That's not very empathic of you.
Which is why I probably won't do that.